Hello and welcome to our review for the Storm Supernova. Angel and James are going to be on the house shot with a sport pattern test featuring James coming soon. Angel will be comparing the Super to the Proton physics, while James will be comparing it to the original Nova with a little different format than normal. Let me know in the comments how you like it, in addition to what else you want to see the Super compared to. Supernova is a combination of a familiar core and cover now. You can see their overall strength rankings on the chart here. The ignition core from the Nova at a 249 RG, 052 differential, and an 019 intermediate differential in 15 pounds. And the NEX solid cover from balls like the Axiom, High Road Max, and Proton Physics at a 2000 grit finish out of box, or at least that's the surface it's supposed to be. Both the ones we got didn't seem to be quite that dull. We left it for Angel, but James reset his Super and original Nova to 3000 for an apples-to-apples comparison that we'll see a bit later. The house shot is similar to Kegel's Easy Street, but a little higher volume. It's medium difficulty for a house shot, but not actually difficult. Tell that to our league scores so far this year. And we're also bowling on brand new pins, as James will show us later. Right off the rip, I've made this comment repeatedly when talking about NEX solid balls. I have no idea how they're so clean up front for how much they actually hook. As with several similar balls before, like the Proton Physics, Reality, and Gem, even some of the stronger symmetric balls, I thought the Super was just going to be too much ball for Angel. Even if it gave her 10 to 15 shots at first, I figured it'd catch up with her and start hooking too much, and then with as tumbly and rolly as the ignition core is, I didn't think she'd be able to chase it in at all because the original Nova doesn't really like angle. Wrong, and Angel is thrilled about that because of how much she likes her Nova. It definitely controls straighter angles like the Nova does. The original is really good at rolling and controlling the pocket. This core doesn't really rev very quickly though, which is an odd thing to watch. It has a strong roll. Watching it, you can see and feel the strength and stability. This is what's made the Nova so good at what it does, I think. The cleaner cover gets it down the lane, it's tumbly and rolly like an Axiom, and it has the torque to be somewhat firm on the back end, but it doesn't really rev up like a Reality or even the Proton. The Reality almost seems to accelerate on the back end. It hits the lane and then really starts winding up. The Proton rolls strong and begins revving up pretty quickly, but in contrast, the Super and the Nova have a very gradual and metered look. However, the Nova eases or settles into the pocket, but at 40 feet, the Super differentiates itself from the Nova. Once it turns and starts picking up, it doesn't waste any time. It gets pretty sharp and aggressive, but still maintains the tumbly kind of heavy roll. It's hard to explain, but it doesn't pick up and then sharply cut through the pins like the Reality line does, for example. It picks up firmly but stays stable. It doesn't get too zippy or sharp. Typically, balls that do this don't succeed from deeper angles, but NEX once again proves how unique it is. I don't know how something can be this clean, this strong, and this sharp, and do it well from all over the lane. This might be the most versatile ball I've ever seen for Angel. She can walk it down the side, she can play her typical little third arrow swing, or she can get just about as deep as she wants to. With her slower speed, she can bend just about anything, but I've never seen a ball that hooks this much and that gets back from these kinds of angles that can also float right down second arrow and manage to transition and then continue without burning energy or standing up or quitting. I also think the Super would look great for someone like Julia Bond because she's so good at controlling her shapes and angles, and with as versatile as this ball is, for her or anyone in general, it could potentially replace a couple balls in the bag at the top, or act as two different balls anyway. It has the length and shape of something like the Reality, but the stability and roll of something like the Gem, so if you need it to go and pop down lane, you can get it to do that, or if you need it to be a little earlier and slower, that's just a small physical and lane play adjustment away, where I think with the Reality, it's a little hard to slow down sometimes, and with the Gem, it's a little hard to get it to shape sometimes. As far as zone coverage, condition coverage, and the number of bowler styles it's going to match up with, this might be the most versatile quote-unquote hook monster I've ever seen. It's not the strongest. I think the Gem and Proton still have it beat. We'll look at the Proton next, and we'll have plenty of comparisons coming in the next few weeks. Let's look at the numbers first, and there's not much difference to see here. Both NEX solid, both are supposed to come at 2000, and the cores are almost a wash on paper, though Atomic is technically a bit stronger. There's several cores in this general zone, so the strength difference isn't as big as it looks like on this chart. Again, NEX Solid somehow gets a lot of length for how strong it is, but Angel had to start an arrow and a half further left with the Proton. Couple things. The Proton came closer to 2000 than the Super, so that accounts for at least a few boards, but also the atomic core revs up more than the ignition does. Something I'm going to start recommending to everyone going forward is to reset the surfaces when you get the ball, because with all apologies to HQ, box surfaces have been really inconsistent for a while. 4K fast is also a thing now, but Angel's Super that supposedly at 2000 came out of the box looking just like her Night Road that's at 4K fast, and I've seen some 4K fast stuff look like it's 2000. First of all, accurate surfaces or not, replicating box surface is impossible. Number two, and most importantly, when you adjust the surface, you know exactly what it is and can get it back there. Short of spending a few $100s on a surface scanner to check everything coming out of the box, you just doing it yourself gives you all the control and makes it consistent and repeatable. I like using React-A-Scuff for this. It gets it to about a 3000 grit sheen, which I think puts stuff in a perfect zone. Anyway, ball reaction. The Proton revs up faster, is more of an arc, and is a little straighter off the end of the pattern. Adding the Super back in here from this deeper zone, it can hang, so just because she started deeper with the Proton doesn't mean the Proton is somehow 2 arrows stronger, because once again, board coverage doesn't equal strength. You can cover boards with anything on a house shot, so what we look for when shooting on the house shot is nearly 100% zone coverage, or how effective a ball is at playing the different zones. The Super is definitely more effective from straighter, and I think the Proton has a slight edge from deeper. The Proton wants to straighten out a little, but picks up sooner and is sharper, while the Super is a little slower, more tumbly, more gradual, but still effective. Pay very close attention here. You can see the Proton start to spin faster around 30 feet. The Super spins at the same speed until it gets closer to the end of the pattern. This is a visual representation of what revving looks like, and slow-mo actually helps to see it in this case. Proton starts revving earlier and faster, so that's what gets it to stabilize, stop going right, and start going in the direction of the rotation earlier, and that's what makes it look a little better from deep than the Super for Angel specifically. If you up the rev rate like we're about to do, the Super gives them control while the Proton might be a little too strong and too quick, so keep that in mind. People have to get out of the headspace of thinking that more board coverage is more hook and a stronger shape on the back end is better. This is very, very rarely the case. It looks more impressive, but pretty ball reaction doesn't always knock the pins down. That said, it's time to watch some pretty ball reaction knock some pins down and test a new format. A handful of shots with the Super, followed by a handful of shots with the comparison ball, the Nova in this case, to really test them side by side. I know that desired comparisons are two balls thrown at the same time on the same lane to make all things as equal as possible. However, especially when throwing balls of this strength at this rev rate, lanes transition in a hurry. If you throw a few games with one ball, then throw a few more games with the comparison ball right behind it, that's less equal of a comparison than if you film for one ball on a fresh lane one day, and then film for the other ball on a fresh but different lane on a different day. This way we can accomplish both. Right away, as we look at the Nova, the cover differences are starkly obvious. I'll pop the chart up after we finish these initial shots to show you how far apart the covers are in strength, but all you really need is your eyes in this case. Again, I harp on this a lot, but forget Pearl, Hybrid, Solid. Those very rarely actually mean anything because the Solid Super is both sharper and covers more boards than the Hybrid Nova. Conventional wisdom would have the cover type crowd scratching their heads because hybrids are supposed to be longer and sharper than solids and cover more boards. Cover formula is a much more dominant factor, and remember, both balls are at the same surface here. Ball reaction, plain and simple, watch the ball reaction. Don't get trapped into the idea of, oh, I need a hybrid in my bag and I was looking at the RSTX3 and Nova, which one should I get? Those balls are miles apart in terms of reaction. You can't use the cover type to identify a specific reaction. If you say hybrid, are you talking X3 reaction or Nova reaction? Or high road reaction even? It just doesn't make sense, but rant off, I digress. Like I mentioned earlier, the Super has a very stable, controllable roll up front, but then it almost turns into a reality down lane. Instead of starting to hook and then walking in like the Nova does, the Super looks like it picks up and then accelerates, but it's not as sharp or fast as the reality. It still has that controllable tumble. The Reality really builds steam and almost cuts through the pins. Really pretty ball motion, but for a rev rate like James, there are a lot of twister pin looking back row leaves with it. That comparison will be coming soon. Like the Reality, however, he can get the Super back from anywhere. To continue the thought that I mentioned earlier about the Proton being slightly better from angle than the Super for Angel because the Super's a little slower, that idea is flipped here for James. The Super for him is plenty fast and even a bit too angular on some shots. He definitely wouldn't want or need anything, earlier or sharper than this. The smoother, more tumbly reaction balances the abundance of ball motion he can create, and the result is good ball reaction. Adding in the Nova for extended time, you can see the familiarity of the roll despite how obviously different these covers are, and now that he's transitioned the lane some by finishing up filming with the Super, we see it as a nice solid step down from the Super. It just still isn't the biggest fan of covering boards no matter what. The Nova wants to do the same things the Super does, the cover just doesn't have anywhere near the same traction, so it gets a lot further down the lane and is more blendy and gradual on the back end. You can see that even when he slows it down and gives it more time, it's still trying to resist the angle. It'll still punch just fine if he finds some friction or gives it some extra time to get moving, but it's a whole lot more limited from a zone coverage point of view. It's almost like an asymmetric idle. It really likes staying outside of fourth arrow, and it's really good at doing that. I think people need to be a little bit more cognizant of things like this. Bowlers will get frustrated if a ball doesn't do virtually everything on every kind of condition, but they don't try to force a 7-iron to be a pitching wedge or a 4-iron out on the golf course, and this is the same idea. The Nova has obvious preferences, and it's really good at doing what it does. I actually just drilled a fresh one myself because I want the look it offers. When that look isn't there, I'll throw something else, but too many people will look at what the Nova is doing right now and go, well, that ball just sucks, or that ball didn't hook enough, rather than think, gee, if it's not hooking enough, maybe I should move, or even just put it away for now. You wouldn't say a 7-iron sucks because it doesn't hit the ball far enough off the tee on a par 5. You'd call someone an idiot for doing that and tell them to put it back in the bag and use it in the right situation. Now this situation gets flipped on its head in the sport comparison, and that's quite interesting. That video will be coming soon. The Supernova comes out along with the Night Road on September 23rd. There are plenty of comparisons coming for both. This one's going to be a hit. It was very smartly designed. The cover and core are an extremely good matchup, and although people asked why because of how close it is on paper to the Proton, I think you can see that neither ball is really stepping on the toes of the other one too much. Big shout out and thanks to my Patreon members and great Discord community. Thank you for watching, and may the strikes be with you.